at those effects, the lighting, they're super bright. I'm afraid the camera doesn't even do it justice. They look so good in person. Hey everyone, Digital David here. Today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the Cooler Master HAF 500 White Edition. I did receive this product from Cooler Master to review, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this case or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. You can see the retail box and packaging right here. Off to the side, we have all of our tech specs listed for this case, so you can check those out. This does feature a 4mm thick tempered glass side panel, and we have a really nice mesh front panel. Some of the other features for this case are as follows. We have dual 200mm ARGB cooling fans on the front. We have the ability to add up to 7 120mm fans to this case, and it supports dual 360mm radiators. Really impressive stuff in regards to cooling and airflow. This also has the latest USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2 as well on it. Other than that, they list a couple more features here on the backside. So we have a rotatable GPU fan, and we have screwless and tool-free design to easily remove the side panel. And I want to point out, depending on your cooling solution and how you're going to configure this, you can actually remove the top panel as well to help with your installation and build. Now let's go ahead, let's open this up and look at the contents. Here are all the contents. First up, you can see we have our user guide and manual walking us through a lot of different configuration options depending on how we want to set everything up, and they give us a nice rundown of all of our front panel connections right there. Next, you can see we have our hardware kit with all the screws we need and some zip ties for cable management. And last but not least, we have the case itself. Let's go ahead, let's look at this in more detail. Here's a look at the case from the top. Check it out, everything looks great. Our top little mesh screen is removable, which is nice, and it's magnetic, so it easily just snaps right in place for easy cleaning. You can see on our front panel, we have our 2 USB ports, power button, headphone jack, reset button. We can configure that to use and control our RGB, and we have our USB Type-C port. Now you can see the very front right here. Check it out. We have our lovely mesh panel. Look at the really cool design and detail that we have. We even have HAF up here in the top. Now let's go ahead, let's get this panel removed and look at it. Now we have it removed, and you can see our dual 200mm ARGB fans. Those things are massive and they look so good. Now you can see the case from the bottom right here. Check it out, everything looks great. We have an easy to clean filter as well from the bottom for our power supply. And you can see our nice feet and where we can go about pulling off that front panel cover. Now you can see the back side of the case with our exhaust fan, where our motherboard I/O is going to go, all of our expansion slots, and our power supply. Pay attention right here, we have 2 screws to remove to get access to the back panel, and 1 screw to remove the tempered glass front panel. Now you can see the back side of our case right here in white. Let's go ahead and remove the panel. Now you can see the inside from the back. We have plenty of room to manage all of our cables and get really creative with our build. And you can see all of our included cables for our I/O and our fans. And you can see our nice hub and controller right there. And again, plenty of room through all the different grommets and channels to manage and route our cables as we see fit. And saving the best for last, you can now see our front tempered glass panel right here. We still have our protective film on it. Let's go ahead and open it up. Now you can see the inside right here with our 1 included exhaust fan, but don't forget about our dual 200mm fans. And you can see we have an additional fan down here included that we can rotate as needed for our GPU. We have 2 hard drive trays down here, a nice power supply unit shroud to cover everything. Plenty of room up top. This is removable as well to easily mount and configure your coolers. Plenty of space in here for cable management and to really configure this however you see fit. So you can see we have our PC built now. Everything turned out great. Let's go ahead, let's look at it up close. So looking at the heart of the build right here, you can see how everything looks. Plenty of room up top for an additional AIO if we want. Plenty of room on the side. Again, maybe you want to dabble in some custom water cooling, something along those lines. You have plenty of room in this case. I really like having our GPU fan here. So cool that we have a dedicated fan to help cool the GPU, and you can configure that depending depending on the size of your GPU. You can see what we're able to do here with our 3080 FE. Down at the bottom, you may have noticed we did remove the white plastic shroud. I wanted to be able to showcase the display of our XG850 power supply. I do wish, with that being said, the shroud just had a cover on the side that was removable, so we could still keep it for the top and the sides to hide all of our cables down here. But to be able to see this beautiful display, that was a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I guess if you really wanted, you might be able to cut one out yourself. But if I want to see something improved in this case, it'd be a cutout in the shroud so we could still keep it intact and see a display for our power supply unit. Other than that, maybe if I'm getting picky up here, I would like some better cable management channeling options so we could hide those cables altogether. You can see they do have to come across here to make their way to the backside. Not that big of a deal, but it is still noticeable. And obviously we could really tidy these up with some additional zip ties, but that will be visible here if you're not able to hide it with something else. But plenty of room in this case to really configure it however you see fit. Now you can see the back side of our case right here. Plenty of room for cable management to get our back cover on. You can see down at the bottom we have some of our extra power supply cables down here. You can see our CPU power going up along the side with this channel. Some fan cables coming along the top right here. Kind of our main trunk with all of our cables running right here. We have our hub with our fans and our ARGB with our controls for the case using the reset button there. So plenty of room. Obviously, we could add some additional drives here. We have access right here for 2 additional 3.5-inch disk drives as well. You can see some additional options we have to pass cables through the front or the back. It's really up to you how you want to configure it, but there's plenty of room to zip tie, Velcro, and tie off everything so you can get it nice and managed and keep everything organized. So the RGB of this build really makes it what it is, especially with those 2 beautiful fans on the front. So don't forget, by default, it's configured that you can use the reset switch to control the RGB. So let's go ahead, let's cycle through all the different options we have using our built-in button on the front panel. Super convenient, no additional software needed to control your fans. So this is really cool. You can see everything in our case, from our fans, from our cooler to our exhaust fan to our 2 front fans, all being controlled by our reset button. And look at those effects, the lighting, they're super bright. I'm afraid the camera doesn't even do it justice. They look so good in person. Obviously, you may notice that the power supply RGB isn't changing, our GPU RGB isn't changing, we don't have any RGB for our RAM, and our motherboard RGB isn't changing. That will have to be controlled separately using software like the Cooler Master Master Plus software for our power supply to match up, if we want, with the limited options that we have for that particular model, or our GPU, or if we have RAM with this, that would be through additional software like MSI Mystic Light that we could use to control our RGB on this board. So keep that in mind. Everything looks really nice, super convenient for a majority of our RGB on this build to be controlled right from within the case with no additional software. I mean, look at those effects. Choose the color you want, choose the effect you want. Different themes, maybe different moods for you, maybe the different game you're playing. There's the Cooler Master Purple. I love that color. But look at that. So bright. It illuminates everything. That's what I really like about white cases. And now you can see we're back to some of our rainbow RGB effects and transitions there. Look at that, though. So cool. Now I just wanted to click through everything again really quickly. You can see it more from the side. Really maybe appreciate the colors and effects that we have here. All the different transitions. But I mean, look at how bright that is. It lights up the whole inside. Everything looks really, really sharp. Very vibrant. Beautiful colors. And again, super responsive too, right? It's really nice that everything's really easy to control with the touch of a button on the front of our PC. And now one more time from another angle too, so you can see it from the back side with our front intake fans and our exhaust fan. But check that out. Look at how cool everything looks. It is really fun to have all our RGB controls right here. And again, they look so good in person. It's really hard to showcase that over video. But if you're looking for some bright RGB that's easy to control for your build, this is definitely going to be a case that you're going to want to consider. I mean, look at those. So nice. So now let's talk about this case and its airflow as well as its temperature. So we'll be conducting a test with all the panels on and seeing what it's like at idle temperatures as well as what the temperatures are like when it's under 100% load. Chances are you may be swapping out some different parts and components internally, but most likely you'll be using the two massive air intake fans that are provided for the front panel. You'll probably use a GPU fan like you see here and an exhaust fan out the back. And if you have an AIO, most likely you might be mounting it at the top too, but that's really going to depend on your build. But the principles will still apply, but obviously you'll see slightly different results with the parts and components that you're using. But my first observation is this really does push a lot of air through the system, as you would expect with the two massive air intake fans. And we have our nice GPU fan that's dedicated to helping make sure that the GPU stays nice and cool. With this build, most of it's going to be exhausting out the back, as you see right here. And you can definitely tell this is really pushing out a lot of air from our back exhaust fan. Not much up at the top. Again, currently it's at idle, so we're not feeling much air coming and moving through here, as again you would expect since it's not even under any load, and the GPU fans aren't even powered on as well. So first, let's go ahead, since it is idling, let's check out the temperatures. So for our temperatures, you can see our CPU currently is hovering around 27 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Celsius for our idle temp. What's cool is we have a nice breakdown too of our P cores and our E cores with our Intel 12th gen CPU. If you're wondering about the RAM, you can see 25 degrees Celsius is what we're hovering at. Then you can see for our M.2 drive, 30 degrees Celsius at idle temps. And our GPU, the fans have not even kicked on yet. You can see we're hovering right around 22, 23 degrees Celsius. Now you can see our temps were getting under 100% load. We've cycled through a couple of different Cinebench R23 tests, and we currently have another one running. So our CPU is being maxed out right now. And you can see the temp that we're getting on the screen, 90 degrees Celsius. We've peaked at 93 degrees Celsius, but right at 100% load, you can see it's right around that 90 degrees Celsius range. Now, that's not going to be a fault to this case. Obviously, if you want to take off the panels, that could help a little bit, but really it's going to come down to our CPU runs hot anyways. Due to this being Intel 12th gen, that's a pretty common occurrence for these CPUs. So you could swap out if you wanted the CPU, different cooler, thermal paste, but really if you want it to run a little bit lower, whether it's this case or a different case, you're probably going to have to spend some time adjusting the voltages and underclocking the CPU if you're uncomfortable with that and the temperatures that it's getting right now. So I don't fault the case at all whatsoever. The case is doing a great job, and in fact, we have tons of nice, cool ambient air still exhausting out the rear panel right here. There is some warm air coming out at the top, as you'd expect from our AIO. So with that being said, it definitely runs hot, but that's because of our Intel 12th gen CPU and not the case itself. Now for a more realistic test, how does this do while gaming? You can see our results right here. So the CPU peaked at 73 degrees Celsius while under load and gaming, and our GPU peaked at 66.6 degrees Celsius, really respectable and well within range. So overall, I've had a great experience building in this case. Whether it's your first build or you've built many PCs, you will really enjoy building in this case. Plenty of room to configure your build however you see fit, and a lot of great cooling options. I love the looks of this case too. Don't forget there's a black version available. Having that massive front panel with mesh and those two extra large RGB fans looks so good. Tempered glass on the side looks great as well. And why I like the white colors, I really feel like it helps to reflect and brighten up your build with the RGB that you have installed. Great feature to have our dedicated GPU cooling fan. That is really a nice touch. Overall, really happy with it. The things I would change really only reflect this particular build. The first one and most important for me would be having the ability to keep the power supply shroud on, but maybe remove a cover on the front so we could reveal our display. I really like having fancy power supplies that have displays on them. Maybe you do too. And it would be nice to be able to still have the shroud so we could cover everything else, but still see our display that we paid a pretty penny for. Other than that, maybe some better cable management or routing up at the top for our I/O for the front panel. Nothing wrong with it at all. I'm being really picky there, but I wish maybe there was a little channel up there that could hide everything better, or some sort of maybe white cover or plastic so you wouldn't have to see any of the black cables. Or maybe just make those cables white in the future to match everything else, and you wouldn't have to do that. But overall, really enjoyable experience building in this PC case, and it's a fantastic option if you're looking to build a PC.